I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this review is going to be for 2015's Ted 2, which is once again directed by Seth MacFarlane, and, well, stars most of the cast except for Mila Kunis, because she didn't come back for this movie. But what's the plot of Ted 2? Well, John and Lori have been now divorced, and months later since then, Ted and Tammy Lynn's marriage is about to be on the same road. To patch things up, Ted and Tammy Lynn plan to have a child with John's help, but their efforts backfire disastrously because Tammy Lynn has drug problems, so she can't give birth, even though that in the first film she mentioned that she gave birth once, so that is kind of a plot hole. They try to adopt, but then, of course, legal status of the person gets raised, and so because of that, Ted is declared property by the government, loses all of his rights, his job, his accounts. Now Ted has to fight a hopeless legal battle with an inexperienced young lawyer to regain his rightful legal status. However, with Ted's drunken idiocies and sinister forces interested in this situation to exploit him, Ted's quest has all the odds against him. Yeah, so, as for my reaction to Ted 2, I remember when this came out in theaters back when I had just finished 11th grade. It was my last high school summer before I would go on to the very final year of high school to graduate. I remember seeing this in theaters back then when it first came out, and despite at the time, the first film got good reviews, and out of nowhere, actually somehow made over 500 million worldwide. This, though, sadly, this got mixed reactions from people. It didn't do that well at the box office. I'll get to that later. I'm going to say more of the reaction. I can get to probably why later on. I still liked the movie. I mean, I still liked it, but I didn't really mostly liked it back then. It wasn't really anything special, but honestly, rewatching this movie now, I honestly think I'm kind of starting to like this one a little bit more than the first. Because here's the thing. The first one was called Ted, but it didn't even feel like it was really about Ted. This one, it actually is more about Ted this time, and the crude jokes are there. They're not the main focus of the film, and it feels like it has more of a story this time, and it does touch up on things like I wish they kind of touched up on Ted's status as a legal person in the first film. I kind of wish that was the story of the first one. To be a little more fair, because it's kind of weird he suddenly got all these human rights the minute he was born. Right there, and also, there's a much more exciting finale at Comic-Con and stuff. There's much more of a proper finale here. And also, much more likable love interest in Samantha, because I honestly, with the first film's love interest, Lori, I just did not like her character. So I feel like Samantha was a much more likable character, to be fair. So, how was Ted 2 made? Well, at the American Dad Comic-Con panel in 2012, Seth MacFarlane had said he was open to a sequel to Ted. Then around September 2012, 3 months after the first film had come out, Steve Burke said the studio was looking to make a sequel as soon as possible. Then in January 2013, Mark Wahlberg confirmed that they were doing a sequel. And it would be the first sequel of his career. And also at the 85th Academy Awards, Mark Wahlberg and Ted were actually presenting, especially And ironically, his voice, Seth MacFarlane himself, also hosted that Oscar ceremony. And then by October 2013, the release date got announced for June 26, 2015. And originally, the whole civil rights lawsuit was not going to be the plot. Originally, the film was going to be about Ted and John trying to smuggle pot across the country, but the problem was, around the same time the movie got announced, Where the Millers had come out, had the same plot, and so they realized, oh shit, that's the same movie. Well, we can't do that. We gotta change the plot. So they scrapped the story. The storyline got overhauled. Right there, they had to change it, and that version of the story did have Mila Kunis. Laurie was going to come back for that story. But the drug smuggling storyline got scrapped, and, well, they felt there was no room for Laurie in the story at this point. So, gotta scrap her character. And not to mention, Mila was pregnant at the time. And went to go film the shitty film called Jupiter Ascending instead. Yeah. Better choice to do that instead. To be fair, I didn't like, but once again, I didn't really like her character in the first film anyway, so I didn't really mind the removal, as some people did. But anyway, after the film was shot and marketed, Ted 2 was released on June 26, 2015, and, well, it was decently successful, but not as much as the first film. Because I think I can list some reasons why. For first reason, Seth MacFarlane, as we all know, is the creator of the show Family Guy. The thing was, Family Guy at this point when the film came out was losing its popularity and just starting to get worse ratings as it progressed. At that point, people just hated the show now. It was pretty much just starting to really get bad. Like, even for myself, like, this is when that's when Family Guy got really fucked up and kind of disturbing at times. So Family Guy was losing interest, and a year before this movie, Seth MacFarlane had actually directed another film called A Million Ways to Die in the West, and it was fucking awful. Look, I like the Ted films, and I definitely don't mind Seth MacFarlane as an actor and a filmmaker, but I think Million Ways to Die in the West is easily a piece of shit. I am not a fan of that film because that movie literally, I can see why people hated that movie and it bombed, because that film literally just felt like a massive step down from the first film and, well, a year before this and stuff, and it didn't really make any money at all. It basically, because it just felt like another Adam Sandler Happy Madison comedy with the typical Family Guy gags thrown in it. So, A Million Ways to Die in the West's reactions and Family Guy's downfall hurt this movie a lot. It kind of really hurt the hype this movie had. And also, Kunis not reprising her role either. It just kind of hurt this film's chances of still being a decent enough hit. So, I mean, it got better reviews than Million Ways to Die in the West, but at the box office, not really anybody saw it because, like, and honestly, like, when I went to see the movie in theaters, the theater was, like, dead empty. There was, like, one guy and these two other kids there with him, and maybe somebody else or two more, and that was it. However, though, eventually 9 years later, the teddy bear would come back with a prequel television series I have heard is really funny and I do need to check out, which I'll probably check out this summer. Yeah, this film, it's full of, like, quality humor, like, social, political, and personal. Like, it does live up to expectations. It doesn't really slack anywhere. That's what I think anyways. Like, it did well in making me laugh and stuff, and of course, and also the underbelly of the social setup is also pretty done well. It's kind of a good plot line here that does really make you think about what it means to be a real person. The layout does, like, it really does have, like, the whole touch of Steph's other animated series called American Dad, which isn't as well known as Family Guy, but is minorly successful. It's, like, a no-brainer, like, for those who still did love Family Guy at the time, and because like you do have all the Family Guy cutaways, you have some of the typical Family Guy humor, and like also for those who are pop culture lovers, you have the finale at Comic Con, at New York Comic Con, and there's a whole bunch of 90s and 80s movie characters there. Right there, like we're treated to a bunch of class and politically incorrect humor in the film, and of course you have some coming back and among a few newbies, like the Patrick Warburton's character from the first film. He's back, and this time we find out that he's actually a Comic Con bully that goes to Comic Con and bullies the nerds every year. You have Morgan Freeman cameoing as a civil rights lawyer near the finale. Oh, Sam Jones even comes back for a few more scenes, and you even have like Tom Brady making one cameo. Liam Neeson actually makes a cameo as this customer that tries to buy a trick cereal, which is apparently a kids themed cereal, and worried about getting beat up for it. And right there, it's so yeah, like you do have some more funny moments in this one, like and stuff like such as the songs and the pop culture historical references or the references to TV shows and. Right there. So, how does the movie start? Well, the first scene of the movie does kind of start off like how the first film ended, except now it's Ted and Tammy Lynn being married in the redo of the scene this time around. Where this time Ted marries his girlfriend, like Tammy Lynn, literally. And 6 months before that wedding happened, John Bennett and Lori Collins divorced because apparently she kept trying to change him again. Despite the first one, apparently she wished Ted back to life, but. That's why I said the wedding at the end of the first film was pointless, because they just divorced and she kind of just went back to trying to change John again. So that's why I felt that wedding at the end of the first film was pointless. There. That's why. Because they just break up by this movie. Then, of course, after the whole wedding party, and we do get a nice little dance number that did feel like a throwback to the opening of Temple of Doom at the nightclub, where Willie's saying anything goes, and he had that inside of all the dancers. Like, it did feel like a good throwback to the beginning of that movie. Did the dancing feel a little bit long? Yeah, maybe it kind of did. Maybe I'd trim it down a little bit, but it was still a nice way to open the film. Then 1 year later, Ted and Tammy Lynn have this heated argument over bills. So the next day at the store, they still work at that store. So this one coworker suggests that they need to have a baby or their marriage is over. So when Ted discusses it with Tammy Lynn, they reconcile. She loves the idea, and they agree to have a baby. Ted cannot father a child because, well, he's a bear. John decides to help find a sperm donor. So originally they tried to go to Flash Gordon, but Flash Gordon only has one sperm because of his 80s lifestyle. So that doesn't work. Then they try breaking into Tom Brady's house, pretending to be these repair people. That obviously fails quick because Tom Brady immediately wakes up and throws him out of the house. And so John decides to volunteer. Originally, Ted was going to ask him, but before they tried all those failed attempts, Ted found a bunch of porn on John's computer and stuff, and even Ted's grossed out by it. To be fair, some of the messed up stuff John has on his laptop, so they have to destroy the laptop, and they must have felt that John didn't have any sperm left, so when they destroy the computer, they smash it, but Ted says they have to bury in the harbor, so they bury in the bottom of the ocean. And then all those other failed attempts happen, and so once they leave Tom Brady's house, we get a cutaway of these cops responding to a call, obviously, about the incident, and the cop's what's going on? Someone's trying to steal Tom Brady's jizz again. Welcome to Boston, kid. Yeah, this film is still funny. Was it a perfect film? No, but honestly, I don't think it really deserves a 46% on paid critics site. It still had the funny humor of the first. John is able to try to provide sperm, but unfortunately Tammy Lynn is infertile, but it is a bit of a plot hole because there's one bit in the first film where Tammy yells at Lori that she gave birth, but Unless that was maybe just to spite Laurie or something like that. Maybe it was just to spite. Maybe that was just said to spite Laurie. Something like that. Maybe that was just said as an insult. But either way, it still is kind of a plot hole. But that doesn't work though. So the couple try to adopt, but then background checks bring Ted's legal status as a person into question. And so the authorities in Massachusetts declare Ted property rather than person. So bad things happen. Ted loses all of his accounts. Ted even loses his job. And of course, his marriage with Tammy Lynn gets no longer recognized. So that's where you know where the story is going. And honestly, there's reasons why I kind of preferred over the first film. Like, there's more comedy. There's an actual story this time around, and it actually has a somewhat better message, and there's some better cinematography, to be fair. Like, there with the first film, the first film felt more like a typical rom-com comedy, where if you did take Ted out of the film, if it was just some Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis rom-com, it wouldn't really be all that memorable. It would just be a film that's there. That's why the first one was so successful, was because of the whole concept of a foul-mouthed bear. And yeah, the foul-mouthed bear was a main character, but the film felt more about John. This one actually feels like it's about Ted. Hence why it feels more like it should be called Ted, because Ted's actually the main character this time, where John is kind of the second lead character this time around. So I actually like this one's more about Ted. The humor actually is a little more funny, and the story here is a bit better, and it's even a life lesson for Ted himself, too. And Seth MacFarlane's direction is very well suited for a movie such as this. Like, the camera angles are 90% of the time are great, the lighting, the choreography is also very well done, and when the film starts off at Ted's wedding, and absurdity behind the relationship with Ted and Tammy Lynn, like, MacFarlane throws in this reminder of what cinema can be. The musical number that pursues the scene, that explodes with creativity, a tribute to some of the golden days of cinema, like there. It's even a tribute, kind of even feels like a tribute to Temple of Doom. Right there, and like, that's where I know, like, whenever I rewatch the film, that Ted's going beyond, like, not just trying to have constant sexual references, and also a film that really deals with problems, like being rejected, being an outsider, feeling disrespected, and also kind of being treated like an object and stuff. But that's kind of the kind of comedy films I wish Seth MacFarlane would kind of do a little bit more of. Not like the constantly dark Family Guy gags, but stuff kind of like this and Ted 1 are the stuff and also the Ted prequel series are kind of the comedy he really should be doing a lot more of. You know, because, especially if I'm not a Family Guy fan, like, Seth MacFarlane actually is a pretty decent filmmaker, and actually still decently pretty funny person. Stuff like, and actually does, heck, And even when he does a song number, he actually can sing really well. And actually can make a very good song number. And a very catchy one. Whenever he does music. There's like references to issues all the times. And like the fun thing in the movie is that it really challenges the audience to use their brains and their hearts. And forgetting the dialogue that's used to convey ideas, like the Ted and the Gang are not really delicate like that, because the trio here in this movie, they love the booze, drugs, the trashy comebacks, but that stuff's not the spotlight here. It's the softer incarnation of what the characters have been. There is still stupidity, like it's not overwhelming this time around. I'm glad it takes a bit of a backseat this time around. There's offensive words, but there's also a bit of a stronger heart here. So, after all the hell that Ted's now going through, John suggests when they're at the park that they take the state to court. They ask the best lawyer they can find, and assigns the case like to his niece Samuel Jackson, a Novin Slayer, aka Samantha Leslie Jackson. And we find out, like, once we meet her, she's a pot addict. And when they know her name's like kind of Sam L. Jackson, they think of Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, but because like she doesn't have pop culture knowledge, she doesn't know who Samuel L. Jackson is, but they still bond over their love of marijuana as they're preparing to present the case and stuff. And there's a nice little montage during the whole case where Samantha's getting out all these versus books, and Ted and John are getting out all these movies they have, and where John whips out Kramer versus Kramer, DVD for Alien vs. Predator, a DVD for Freddy vs. Jason, even, and then Ted, on the other hand, whips out a bunch of Ernest DVDs where Ernest goes to camp, Ernest goes to jail, the importance of being earnest, right there, which is not even not related to the character Ernest. It's a different film, but he calls it disappointing. And of course, this one Ted is feeding these geese, and these geese carry him off, and it's a nice little. It's also a nice little song number. Like whenever it kind of feels like a music box that's playing right there, and when you have the trio even dancing to the song in the cutaways. Meanwhile, Donnie, on the other hand, yeah, he's back in this movie, and to be fair, did we really need to see him back? But he's back in this one. He's now a janitor at Hasbro headquarters. They don't even really explain where his son is. He proposes to the CEO to abduct Ted for research, live Teddy bears commercially, but in order to do that, he has to stay property. So, they hire an expert attorney in secret to ensure that Ted maintains his status as property. And so the court trial then happens, and eventually we do get more of John and Samantha bonding right there, and then, of course, they go up to the balcony and they throw apples at joggers. They see one, they throw the apples at him. The jogger's yelling at them, and a biker crashes into him. So the court trial then happens. Sam tries her best, but the court rules against Ted. So they're disheartened and they're desperate, but the trio don't give up just yet because they contact Patrick Meegan, Morgan Freeman's character, who's a respected civil rights attorney, to help overturn the court's decision. So, during Manhattan trip to meet Meegan, John and Sam do fall in love, and on their way there, they stop at a diner. There's this blind guy that's being impatient with his coffee. Samantha doesn't know that he's a blind guy, though, yet, but so she tosses a Cookie Crisp into his butt crack. And then they find out he's blind, like, oh shit, we're sorry. But the blind guy's like, chill, like, normal circumstances, it's alright. And then the waitress is telling them to keep her boyfriend in control. But then Samantha clarifies that he's not her boyfriend. And as the waitress leaves, like, Ted's like, what? She was giving you the fuck me eyes. And of course, Samantha's like, do I fuck me eyes? Or... no, yeah, give me the ring, your precious eyes. Like, a reference to Gollum, which is going to be another thing eventually later. So, eventually, on their way there, Samantha allows Ted like 20 minutes to drive, but Ted fucks up like while smoking, and they crash into this weed barn, and so they spend the night there, and then you do get this song number that Samantha actually does sing. It's actually nice moments right here. Like, even while it's kind of still a funny moment because they're singing because she's singing it while they're kind of still stoned on weed, and because Ted's all stoned on the weed, he sees all these animals popping out to listen to it, and obviously these are drug hallucinations Ted's having or the characters are having. But either way, like, despite that, like, it's still a good little scene right here. And this is a scene where John and Samantha actually do fall in love, and despite all the hell like Ted is going through, like they're having this little bond moments in this private weed barn at this fire, and like that's definitely a nice moment to have right there in the film. Like, and also is actually surprisingly nice moment where nice little song number right there. Like, usually it's kind of weird when there's a musical number in a comedy film, but here it actually does work well. Here, because this is the moment where John and Samantha are falling in love, and even like Ted's actually happy for them. Happy that John's falling in love again. Right there. Despite all the hell he's going through. So that's what I do like about Ted and John's friendship, is that, yeah, they're vulgar and they're rude, but they actually still like each other as friends. They actually still really do care about one another, and Ted is actually happy that John's finding love again after he divorced Lori. So then in the unrated version, we find out that the weed farm belongs to these rednecks, and they try to shoot the trio and chase them out of it. But a car crashes into their truck, and they blow up. That was in the trailer, but it's not in the theatrical version. That's only in the unrated movie. I don't know why that scene could have been in the unrated movie, instead of, like, this weed barn being just unnoticed and stuff. Like, that would be a lot weird. Because, like, it should have been in the film. then it would have, because I don't really buy that place being abandoned, and it would have made more sense as to why their car was a little more wrecked and damaged on their way out. But yeah, well, eventually they do get to New York, and the trio meets Megan, but he is sympathetic to Ted's plight, but he refuses the case because he believes that Ted has not really contributed to humanity because of his hedonistic lifestyle with all the drugs and the arrests. And when John tries to say that he contributed well to his life, we find out that John was arrested for marijuana possession in 2003 because he wanted to get fucked up for a Foo Fighters concert. There, and yeah, and the funny moments in this one, like, there's a bit where Ted and John are watching Law and Order and make their old version of the song, "Let's all go to court. Let's go make some law now. Some law now. I say we go to court. Yeah, let's go to court." Oh, we're a bunch of assholes that make law. "Hey, lawyer guy. You don't know that me and Johnny are watching you while we're high." or wherever the two and Samantha often smoke weed. And there's a time whenever John does get high, he gets paranoid, and Ted and Samantha have to help him get back home. Or the montage, like, during the law study, where you kind of see Amanda, Mark, and stuff, like, really had a blast doing these scenes of them together. And of course, like, on their way to New York, when Ted offers to drive and gets them stranded on a weed farm, they spend the night. And before the song number happens, you do get a funny moment where Ted tries out this shotgun and a cowboy hat, and he found the guitar as well, and they're like, "This thing's not loaded." Bam! And it goes flying off, and my fucking nose came off. Like, yeah. Honestly, just all the humor in this film kind of makes me laugh a lot more than the first film's humor did. Right there. And yeah, or how about when Ted finds the porn on John's laptop, and even he's grossed out by all of it, and it's like, "I'm serious, John. Next trick you're meeting, you're getting back in the game." Yeah, like, and so then they have to go bury in the ocean. And this one, like, this movie doesn't depend on crude humor to get laughs, like, right there. Like, there's other funny non-crude humor moments, like when, like, the Liam Neeson cameo, when he's trying to buy this box of tricks, and of course, like, McFarlane does go for the obvious sometimes. There's still plenty of jokes that work without resolving to vulgarity. Like, in the acting, like, it's still in this kind of the same level as the first movie. It's maybe not like much special performances, but it does cover for the needed comedy. And also, Mark Wahlberg really reprises his role, and also actually, like, and does even better in this film than he did a good performance in the first film, but I feel like he does even better. I feel like he has a lot more energy in this one, and actually has a lot more comedic moments in this one here, because, well, since technically, like, he's not the 100% focus this time around, and McFarlane's voice acting as Ted, it's still very terrific, and he does really well in cracking laughs with Ted's raunchy one-liner references. And so, after Megan doesn't want to represent the case, this is where we get on with the finale, where Ted is now upset that he's now going to be property, but John and Samantha are now in love, but Ted takes his frustration down to 2 and he storms off. So he goes into New York Comic Con, because that is happening around the same time as when they're arriving in New York, and they, like, on their way to Megan, they encounter 3 Star Wars cosplayers, like, one dressed up as Darth Vader, one dressed up as Obi-Wan Kenobi, one dressed up as a stormtrooper. And Samantha, because she doesn't know Star Wars, she thinks they're Star Trek characters, and thinks Obi-Wan's Captain Kirk. And they correct her on that, and Darth Vader tries to do his little pose, but Obi-Wan cosplayer's like, no, not worth it, man, not worth it. But yeah, so Ted goes to New York Comic Con. He bumps into Patrick Warburton's character from the first film and his new boyfriend, where they go to Comic Con to beat up and bully nerds. They're pretty much Comic Con bullies, and I like how they kind of demonstrate what they do with how they demonstrate their purposes with Ted. He's like, "Hey Spaz, why don't you go get me some Big League Chew? How about that?" Gives one nerd a wedgie, and Ted's like, "Well, good luck with your dick there." And he's not a little fazed by their actions, and he doesn't really seem all that amused by them beating up random nerds. So he at least at least Ted like does know when to kind of draw the line and stuff like. He may be raunchy at times, but I don't think even he'd go beating up a bunch of nerds. And so after Ted leaves, oh god damn it, Thunderword shit on it. Like there's even some more scenes of beating up nerds where they they spill this guy's lunch where he's dressed up as Superman. Nice lunch spaz and stuff. But before like their next encounter, he encounters like Donnie again, where he's dressing up as the '90s turtle movie Raphael. So yeah, I do like that the villain is dressed up as Raphael, the Ninja Turtle. Like they have a reference to the '90s turtles here. Actually, like, the whole Comic-Con has references to a bunch of classic 80s or 90s films. Like, you have one character in the Comic-Con fight that's dressed up as a three-breasted woman for Total Recall. You got Marty Dog cosplayers. You even got Chucky, a Chucky cosplayer, fighting a Predator cosplayer. How more fucking epic could that be? Like that seems much more epic than Alien versus Predator. Chucky versus Predator would be much more epic than Alien versus Predator or Aliens versus Predator Requiem. Like, can we have that versus movie and couldn't we have a versus movie like that instead? That'd be better. I'd like that a lot better. Even if it wasn't a crossover with Alien, like that would actually be kind of cool. Like so. But Ted encounters Donnie. He does flee and Donnie chases him, and so Ted steals another person's phone to contact Sam and John to inform them of Donnie as Donnie abducts him. Like after Donnie does this Where's Waldo thing when he's hiding on a bunch of all the other Teddy Ruxpins and Guy and his new boyfriend Rick. They see Donnie walking off and Donnie makes up this lie that they're going to get Ted sobered up and be careful, some nerd spills lunch and Guy just trips the nerd that's passing by them and so yeah. So while John and Sam are trying to find Ted, unfortunately, bad luck turns when apparently Flash Gordon is at the con posing with fans, and he encounters John. He's pissed off at John and Ted for wrecking his car, and so he tries to beat up John over it, and that's where you get the Comic-Con fights, and during the Comic-Con fight, the nerds that Guy and Rick beat up and bullied get their revenge on the two by smashing them through this whole glass display. But John manages to outsmart Flash Gordon. I almost forgot to mention this bit. In the unrated version, like Ted did encounter David Hasselhoff in his talking car, and as Ted's questions piss off the talking car, or when John and Sam are trying to find Ted, they end up encountering this whole panel that's announcing the new Superman. The new Superman is Jonah Hill. And John is pissed off at that. And then you also find out that Samantha that's actually the one character that Samantha is actually familiar with. And right there, of course, like, who's Superman? What? I'm just fucking with you. So Samantha does know who Superman at least is. At least she knows who Superman is. I think everybody knows who Superman is. So they find Ted just as Donnie's about to cut him open. John punches Donnie in the face, and Ted reconciles with John and Sam. That's her trying to leave Comic-Con. Donnie is now upset that he'll never have Ted for himself, and so he tries to kill Ted instead. So he severs the cables that hold up a display of the Enterprise and from Star Trek, and it swings towards Ted, but John pushes Ted out of the way to save him. But then he gets injured, and then Ted does the Where's Waldo trick to expose Donnie. Right there. And so, like, he's hiding with all these other Ninja Turtle cosplayers. And when Ted plays I Think We're Alone Now, the one, like, the Raphael Donnie is dancing to it. So, and it's kind of funny to see a Raphael cosplayer dancing to a song like that. But yeah, he gets arrested. This time likely for real, because while Ted's not a person, John definitely is. And since John got injured, this time Donnie won't be escaping any charges, unlike the charges he managed to escape in the first film. He won't be escaping the charges this time around because John definitely is a person. So he's definitely not getting out of that one anytime soon, or probably ever at all. So John gets rushed to the hospital where he flatlines, and originally the group is told that John has died, and they tearfully visit him to bid him farewell, but after Ted bids his farewells, He then wakes up and reveals the doctors actually did revive him, and they worked with him afterward to prank them because apparently they're a fun hospital, and it's to get back at Ted for making him think he was retarded in the first one when he got wished back to life. And well, let's see. And when I first saw this scene, I didn't really get emotional at this bit because I already knew John was alive. I kind of already knew John was kind of fucking with them. So, I didn't really, like, this didn't really feel that much impactful. And plus, it's a comedy. They can't kill him off. It's not this isn't Kevin Smith with Clerks 3. It's not Kevin Smith. Would have probably did that if he had directed this. It's not that at all. Like, right there. So it's a comedy, so of course John's still gonna be alive. Like, initially Samantha is reasonably furious with the prank because, to be fair, she actually did think John had died. But she and John do kiss and they reconcile eventually, like after John tells her to put on her Facebook page that she's in a relationship with John Bennett. And the group rejoices, and so Megan was inspired by John's selflessness and Ted's emotions over the injured Don. So he decides he's going to take their case, and he overturns the ruling by demonstrating that Ted is very self-aware and feels emotions and is capable of empathy. So after he's now officially a person again, the whole crowd applauds him. Like they're all cheering him on. Right there, he's getting applause from all the crowd outside. And so the first thing he does, he proposes to Tammy Lynn again, and of course the crowd cheers when Tammy Lynn says yes, and even Ted tells John, "This is the second time you've made me real." Like, it was a perfect way to end this film. Like, well, it's not over yet though, because sometime later, Ted and Tammy Lynn, they married again, and that kid finally adopt a kid now, and they named him after the Rocky character Apollo Creed. So yeah, she actually get references to Rocky even. Where John and Sam on the other end pursue their own relationship, and John even gives Apollo Creed a miniature baby Teddy Ruxpin of his own, and even tells him, maybe if you wish hard, he'll come to life, and once you guys grow up, you could do all sorts of drugs together. Like, yeah. But then, of course, Ted has to change a diaper. He's on diaper duty. And it turns out the baby took a massive shit, and he throws the diaper at John as one last little joke, and that's how the movie ends. But you do get a credit scene where apparently the Liam Neeson cameo comes back. He bought a box of tricks. He returns to the store. Apparently, like, the people beat him up for having a kid's cereal. He puts the cereal back on the counter and leaves with an angry look of betrayal. But that's how Ted 2 ends. And honestly, like, this definitely felt more like an actual finale this time around. Because, for one, this finale, like, I like better because it's set at Comic-Con. You have it funny at first, where Patrick Warburton and Michael Dorn are bullying and beating up the nerds they encounter. Vivian Ribsy, not sure we really need him to come back, to be honest, but it was definitely iconic and actually kind of awesome seeing him dressing up as a 90s Raphael. And also when he disguises with all the other 90s Turtle cosplayers. Right there, so I like that's a reference to the 90s film here. Right there, the best version of the Turtles. Right there, of course, like, the Comic-Con fight is epic, and of course, like, Freeman deciding, I'm not going to present your case, but then after seeing like Ted's status of actually being able to feel emotion and John's selflessness, I'll present your case. Like, there, he has a change of heart. And of course Ted actually gets to be a person and can now finally adopt his son. And of course, like, the marriage with him and Tammy Lynn is saved. Right there. And John now has an actually proper girlfriend that's more supportive of him. So honestly, like, maybe it's a good spot to leave it alone. You know, maybe it's a good thing it bombed at the box office. And maybe it's a good spot to just leave it alone. You know, don't have another Home Alone 3. Or a bunch of other Home Alone sequels. Don't have another Hangover 2 or 3. Don't have another Clerks 3. Don't have another The Last Jedi. You know, don't have another Scream 6. Etc. and stuff. Don't have another Indiana Jones 5. It was a perfect spot. It was kind of, I feel like, chronological order. This was the perfect spot to end the story. Ted is now a father. John is now a godfather right there. he's kind of a little more grown up now. It's perfect. What else could you do? I'm kind of glad. Maybe there's a good reason for there not to be a third one. There's the prequel series, but no third film. The prequel series is set before the films. Now, would I have any bad qualities with the movie? I think I would say, not sure the movie really needed to be 2 hours long. Like, maybe it could have been trimmed a little bit. Like, it definitely didn't really need to be 2 hours, and there's some scenes that were kind of stupid or could have been trimmed down or cut out entirely. Like, the argument with Ted and Tammy Lynn, it goes on way too long, and when the neighbors start arguing with Ted to be quiet, that got really repetitive, and right there, it definitely feels like an episode from a scene from a bad Family Guy episode. When it comes to Donnie coming back, I mean, I like the Ninja Turtle cosplay bit, but did we really need him back in the story? Because, to be honest, like, he doesn't really contribute that much to the story, but really just to kind of repeat his role again from the first one where he just wants to abduct Ted, and this time around it's make a bunch of other Teds. But despite the fact that he ripped him in half and that almost killed him in the first film, wouldn't that plan fail again? So, if that's the case, why would you want to cut him open again if that like pretty much killed him then, and he would just turn to nothing, so Donnie's plan would fail? And Tammy Lynn, like, now, no, do not cut out Tammy Lynn out, because she actually is important to the storyline. She actually needs to be in the film. I just feel like more could have been done with her character. Like, I honestly do kind of wish she went with the trio to New York. Like, I wish she was in the New York scenes. I actually wish she went with them. You know? And there's also this, like, gag of black dicks that gets tiring because that gag gets repeated over and over again. Like, that was definitely not really funny either. Other than those, I do enjoy Ted 2 slightly more than the first one. And honestly, I do wish there was a bit more of a fan cut of the film, where take the opening scene of the first film where John is 8 years old and when he wishes Ted to life. Then, of course, and then you have the opening scene of the wedding where, and of course, you could play the song "Everybody Needs a Best Friend." Play that song over the dance scene in the opening titles of this movie. You could put it in that, and then you could like trim down the argument scene, or just take it out and just have it say it got implied off screen, and have it act, and have like the whole 1 year later scene start off with John and Ted at the bar. You can remove the black dicks gag. You can kind of trim down like some of that. I don't know what else you could trim down, but other than that, I think you can keep most of the film, and especially keep the weed farm chase from the unrated version in the film, because that definitely should have stayed, and most of the film still stays intact, and then maybe you'd have a better first film right here. Or, you know, just, and kind of like take out the "since you ripped me in half" thing if you're going to make this the first film. That would be a better idea. You know, like, or have it say that, or have say like the moment where he tried to kidnap him off screen and stuff when he have that be a previous encounter off screen like earlier, you know, like a fan cut of this. Pretend this is kind of the first film, in a way. Because I feel like this would have been a better first one, to be honest. Because I kind of wish this was the first film, what we got in 2012. I feel like it would have been better. So in the end, I would also stream Ted 2 because it is slightly better, but it does suffer from some of the same usual problems. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Ted 2. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate Ted 2, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you love Ted 1 and want to see the next round of the Dirty Bear, then I would also stream Ted 2 because it still has the same humor of the first one, as more of a story this time around. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Ted 2, I'm going to give Ted 2 a 7 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for Ted 2. You can go back onto the shelf. Put you there. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys thought about Ted 2, whether you liked this film better, whether you thought the first one was better, or whether you hated this movie and preferred and wished the first film stayed a standalone. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.